relationship between how we do things continuously, or I do, obsessively.
Look how fucking ridiculous this is. And this is like the most transgressive thing, you know. If somebody showed, you know, some extraordinary sexual act, it wouldn't have the power of this silly marker going on this pristine floor. There's real power in this performance that she just stands there and we're all going, you know, spinning around and this thing is taking place.
She almost never does anything without a reason.
So, what's the deal?
I thought it was interesting to put it on top of maps and things like that to make the reference to, like, this is the space that I exist in, you know, on a less personal level, and then it gets to the floor plan of my apartment, and then to me, so it's, you know, existing from a macro to a more micro level. This robot kind of is a metaphor for a life cycle process.
This robot has just done a much more interesting, very way off the map drawing than it's more interesting for that, but it's no longer a metaphor for our constrained little repetitive existence, because that's not what it's doing.
All right, talking about your metaphor, I mean, whatever it is in the, you know, best laid plans of men, that things go awry.
I think, the reason I want to know why she's chosen the figure, I want to pin her down on the floor plan and the map, and the point of this is, what separates this from all those cliche drawing bots that the MIT Media Lab does and Ohio State does? I mean, it's become this kind of trope.
But isn't it enough to make something this funny and this absurd?
Well, isn't it, that's what art does anyway? I mean, isn't one of the functions of art that it thwarts expectations?
Yes,
that
that's
it
right.
upends
Sure.
systems, that it
Sure.
plays with it.
It becomes art because
it's
you don't
half-assed.
take the system seriously enough.
It's art because
It
it's
becomes
half-assed. We're not scientists. There is no responsibility to make it make sense. There's no absolute craft, and there's no absolute knowledge, and there's no absolute way to do it right or wrong.
You know, particularly sitting here for whatever it's been, 15 or 20 minutes, and watching it make this real life, you know, real-time map. But I guess my question is that I don't know, as an artifact, that these sort of function in the same way without being here and seeing this happen.
That's what I mean. They sort of don't do this process justice as these dumb prints that sit on the wall. They're visually, you know, a little arresting, a little interesting, but this is way more interesting. I mean, this robot has all these human qualities of doubt and has, you know, it hesitates and it fucks up.
Yeah, but so why make it either or? Why can't you have both?
This is a critique. The whole point of us being here is to help Amanda figure out how to make more and better work.
That's not necessary.
Isn't it?
No. He took that photo. There's a tiny, very, very tiny head there, a couple millimeters.
Right.
You took that, then what did you do?
And then I took a loop to it, and I did a drawing about that large.
A tiny little drawing.
Well, maybe a little bit, about that big. And then I blew that drawing up
Oh, I see.
and used that to transfer to the large paper.
Well, so what does it reflect, do you think? The problematic nature of trying to work from such a small photograph and make such a big head?
I think it's a lot more than that. I think it's really interesting because it's a kind of elevated sort of looking.
You could have, it's basically interpolation without an algorithm, right? I mean, you did that without you had a system, but it was really sort of intuitive, fluid.
Well, the system was based on knowing how to draw faces.
Do you feel like you accurately represented her face in this, or do you think this is something wholly different?
Pretty darn close, but it wasn't a direct tracing off the photograph. I'm sure that there's probably a lot of distortion.
A couple of things I know, like, to me in the picture it seems like she's looking to our left, and I don't know if you chose it or if it just happened. She's looking to our right in your picture, and even just the emotion on the face, I feel like, you know, I could see your interpretation of it.
I guess I'm trying to understand the point of doing this. Because if I didn't know the system by which you're making something, I might just think, oh, it's a sort of photo-derived large drawing.
And not very good.
Well, and how interesting is it?
I'm thinking of the drawing as a tool rather than as a way to achieve.
Tool to what? For what?
As a tool to try to do just that, to see how much invention and to see what kind of things I'm inventing.
I mean, I spend my life doing this stuff.
Right.
Walking with rocks in your shoes can be interesting. You know, degree of difficulty can be interesting. This image has almost nothing to do with what I can see with my naked eye of that woman there. Plus, it's not a very good drawing. That, you know, that's, I'm not knocking you. I'm just saying, somebody who spends their life trying to make pictures of people, whether it's from photographs or not, really learn to look. I mean, that's what spending your life doing something gives you. You look at a fucking nose and you understand it. You know, it's like the map. It's like a world right there. I find what's happening here believable. You know, just that you understood that partly because you were no longer burdened with the idea of a face. People who don't spend their life drawing think there's a huge difference between human things and inanimate things. But that's not true for people who spend their life representing things with their hand. So, I don't know. What subvert the idea of looking at a photograph and trying to understand what you're picturing?
I was interested in this notion of these sort of anonymous people in these photographs. You know, these people who were apparently at these important life stages of my life and sort of passed through. And what could you know about them? What's it?
Extras.
Extras in your life. Absolutely. That was sort of the original conception for it. And then I think it moved to more about drawing. But I still didn't like that idea.
Yeah, I agree. I think that is the problem. I mean, that photograph, forgive me, is a lot more interesting than this drawing. The drawing is really boring.
You know, in some ways it seems too easy to just blow the photograph up and show it and say, you do the interpretation.
But you're like somebody who wants to get into writing and so sits down and tries to write a novel. And I mean, again, I sound more condescending than I intend.
You've stopped, you know, to some degree and not given us, or not given me personally, the information that I almost think I deserve by having it this size. It's a luxury to be able to see it, you know, on this monstrous scale.
It's the artist finding enough stuff, having an interesting enough sensibility to make it interesting. You're not doing that.